Welcome back to Southern Character, where we share true life stories of grit and grace from inspirational people who leave lasting impressions on those they encounter. I'm your host, James Lewis, and today I just flew into Austin, Texas, and boy, are my arms tired. I'm sitting down with the eldest of the Manning brothers, son of Archie and Olivia, husband of Ellen, and father of May, Arch, and Heid, none other than Cooper Manning, who has promised our listeners an episode of pure excellence.
I'm sure to disappoint, James. You set the bar way too high, way too early.
I tried to. Thank you for having me in your home. You've got a beautiful place here. Nice skyline view of downtown Austin. Now, I wasn't sure, is it Southern hospitality? Do we lead with gifts, or do we save those until the end?
Oh, I'd save it to the end.
Save it to the end? Okay. All right.
Yeah, we'll save it to the end.
Well, so today, I have the benefit of knowing you on the front half, I would say, of our lives. We both grew up in New Orleans and went to Newman together, but you are the senior managing director for AJ Capital. So I'm going to go backwards, right? But before that, you're no stranger to the broadcast booth. You've been TV, radio, NFL, Fox Sunday. Let's see, what else?
Howard Wheel,
right, in New Orleans.
16 years of that. That was a blast.
You had a storied athletic career at Newman High School, and you're also a husband and father of three. So kind of thought we could walk it back to the beginning.
Okay.
How this whole thing started. When you were growing up, you were born in 1976. Right?
74.
Sorry.
Peyton 76, I'm 74, 2 years apart.
Okay. So you're born in 74, but your dad was playing for the Saints from, 71 to 82?
He was a rookie in 71. The Saints came to New Orleans in 67, and and they weren't very good, and then he was kind of going to be the franchise player without a franchise was always his tagline. So yeah, that year in 71, there were the three first picks were all quarterbacks. Jim Plunkett went to the Patriots, Archie went to the Saints, and Dan Pastorini went to the Houston Oilers. And so, I born a couple years later. Parents were 24, and here comes a 12-pound, 3-ounce monster at Baptist Hospital, and big babies.
You were 12 pounds at birth, wow.
12 pounds, 3 ounces.
Okay.
Peyton was 12-1, and as we always say, we thought something was wrong with Eli. He was only 10 pounds.
Okay. That's like 20% lighter. You guys spent so much time as children in the Saints locker room. So what was it like? I mean,
that was kind of my dad's way of just I can remember my dad coming to recess and playing permanent quarterback for us in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. I guess he'd have an off day on a Tuesday. He'd come over there and just get in the football game, just throw to us. So we were always outside in the yard. When you could go to practice back on Saturdays would be a day you'd go to practice with the Saints and just run in the locker room and pretending. I thought, Wes Chandler and Chuck Muncie and Henry Childs and Tommy Myers and Joe Fetterspiel, all those players were, my friends, just like they were my dad's friends when we were 5 and 6. Dean Kleinschmidt and Dan Simmons taping us up and giving us all the equipment and shoulder pads on and, taped ankles. And so that was just kind of the part of the way Peyton and I grew up, and Dad, another way just to spend time with his boys. But it was if we weren't in the front yard throwing the football, we were in the back shooting hoops, or we were, he was throwing us tennis balls, that we were, batting practice, breaking windows. It was all about being outside, doing sports-related things. He didn't really like us inside. And this is a little bit before video games, but that was kind of, let's get out there and go run.
Yeah. No, and I remember, your dad, as far as work ethic goes, and I think he probably instilled so much in you, I would have to imagine, but I remember he would come to every game that when we were playing in high school. I mean, your mom and dad literally came to every game, but what I remember the most is whenever we were on the bus going to a game or from a game, there were times we would see your dad out running and just working out and exercising. We'd be in Lafayette, playing at the Raging Cajun Dome and driving back on and Archie's going out for we're heading to practice for pregame, and he's going out for his morning run. Was
sweat.
he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he always that way?
It was funny. we were doing a little speech the other day. Peyton and Eli and Dad and I were talking, and they were asking about growing up and things you kind of start learning as you get older, that some of the habits of your parents are peculiar at times. You think it's normal, but when you kind of get around some other people going, wait, is it normal for your dad to go into the back house, is what we call the back house? He made this little makeshift weight room and go out there and, lifting weights, and he'd ride this stationary bike and just be sweating like a stuck pig, and then to walk in to the kitchen with no shirt, sweaty, and just drink 2 Bud Lights as fast as you can. I'm like, is that normal nutrition after getting a hell of a workout? But it was around our house, so I think it's a great tradition. I don't know why. I probably need to do a better job of upholding it. I usually kind of waited and showered and then went down and had my first beer later. But he came right out of the sweat in the.
Yeah, that's incredible. He was carb loading.
Yeah, exactly.
He was totally carb loading. I mean, that was acceptable back in the late 70s.
I mean, he used to also like to. He'd bring his Airdyne bike. You could kind of, your arms were moving and
right.
legs were, and just do that. Put it by the swimming pool. We were all swimming. He was getting a suntan and sweating his face off and getting a little cardio in. So you could do it. It comes in all shapes and sizes around our house.
So I also didn't realize this too. Your dad played baseball, right, in high school.
Yeah, really, he was a good baseball player. I think he was the shortstop on the varsity in 7th grade.
Right.
This is small town Mississippi.
Is Drew, Mississippi?
In Drew, Mississippi, in the Delta, Mississippi, which is he described as a great place to grow up, kind of a Mayberry type town. And unfortunately, like a lot of these small southern towns, especially in Mississippi, they've kind of fallen apart and don't look anything like the way they were in the 50s and 60s. But he loved it, and we were talking. Another thing he said was funny one day. He was playing baseball, and I guess the inning ended, and he got called over to run, the 4th leg of a relay race of a track meet going on, across the street, and then hustle back, and be in the hole and try to get a base hit. So I think that's just kind of fun ways of country living in the South.
Yeah,
but
small town.
He was certainly an athlete, and that's kind of how he grew up. Just go outside and pick up a game and go play.
Right. But he didn't play basketball, or did he play
basketball?
Yeah,
he was a good basketball player. Okay. And as a matter of fact, my mom has vivid memories of the Drew High School guys coming to Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, Mississippi, another small town, always had good basketball players. And she was, Philadelphia and Drew played in a playoff game, and she remembered him coming to town and acting kind of cocky and going. She couldn't stand him because he was
really
showboating and dribbling behind his back and between his legs. But kind of before that was probably, too popular.
Okay, so this is before, she was in high school.
She was in high school. That's how that first time she ever saw him. They were in high school together, and then of course they meet at Ole Miss and started dating, and the rest is history.
Well, I was wondering because when I saw that he played shortstop, I remember Peyton played shortstop. I didn't see basketball, so I was wondering because. Yeah, you and Peyton, we all played basketball together, so I was wondering what the tie-in was or how you guys discovered basketball, but he also played.
Yeah, he loved basketball and dribbled too much, they said. He dribbled too much. He remembers all those games so much more. I mean, he's 75. He could remember, we played, Leland in a game, and I had, 20 points. My buddy had 18, and I'm going, Dad, I have a hard time remembering all the games we played. Obviously, we played a lot of games and we won a lot of basketball games, but the recall on them gets fuzzier. He can remember who his roommate was at an all-star game, or who he sat next to dinner with at a Hula Bowl, or who he hung out with at a Pro Bowl. He has very, very sharp memory.
That's great. So in high school, there are 2 receivers from Newman that have over 1,000 yards in receiving, and it's you and Odell Beckham Jr. Well, did you realize that you?
Yeah. Odell probably doesn't know that.
You don't think?
And neither did I. So Odell and I have something in common there.
Well, you do. If you didn't know it, you have something in common with Odell.
It's probably. I don't know much about who Odell's quarterback was, but I have a feeling I might have profited from a better quarterback than Odell.
So that was amazing, though. So when you were in high school, so your senior year. Peyton was a sophomore, so this was 92. You were senior because I graduated
fall of '91.
So fall of '91. So yeah, I mean, you and Peyton How cool was that to get to play with
that
him?
was so much fun, just because all those years of playing in the front yard and and just catching balls from Peyton and then that year that he was a freshman, and I knew he'd have to grow up and be a sophomore. We worked our tails off that summer and I ran routes for him forever, and he was 6'1", 160 pounds, and just made it easy. I mean, he was a field general, so to speak, even at an early age, and kind of not afraid to boss people around that were older than him, and had a great field presence and command of the huddle, and just. But I think selfishly for my parents, it was probably the most fun they ever had. To have two kids playing together in high school is a treasure. And Newman historically wasn't that great at football, and so we kind of got it. Started throwing the ball around a little bit, maybe before other people did. Mm-hmm. Everybody else was still back there, kind of run, and then have to pass. And we started throwing a little bit more on first downs and play action. Had some other receivers, so it was a really a very, very fun time to be in high school.
Yeah. When I think back to high school, I remember, well, I guess the way I remember you is as the comedian. The coach that we shared, Coach Fitz, I mean, he was a very intense guy. Super intense.
Yes.
And that would be an understatement. And no one would even try. If there were so many tense moments, and not that you overdid it, but you were the only person on the team that could actually make him laugh. And I just remember what some of my favorite memories are if Fitz was kind of in Fitz mood and he was fuming, you would just drop in. You had this character that you would play. There was a physics professor named Wilhelm Richter.
Yes.
And you would talk about how he would play basketball when he still had belts and suspenders on his uniforms with this crazy accent, and we would just howl. Dude, with laughter.
Yeah, Coach Fitz was so good for me. I feel so lucky to have had that sort of disciplinarian, could kind of weed through my hot air and BS and call me out on it, and just held you accountable and wouldn't let me. He knew I was full of shit, and I knew I was full of shit, and we both. And had a great relationship, despite despite all that. And we had great teams, and he just was I just look up to him so much, and we definitely battled there. I mean, you fight, and you kind of you don't fight, you get yelled at a lot. I did. I got yelled at probably more than a lot of other people, and rightfully so. But it was so good for me as I grew up and becoming a parent and coaching young kids and just getting my priorities straight. I'm very, very, very fortunate to have had 4 years under Coach Fitz at Newman.
Who are some of the biggest influences on your life from a coaching standpoint, a comedic standpoint, because you're hilarious, and a parental standpoint?
Well, from coaching, I had great coaches, early on. I mean, I played some pretty competitive baseball as a young guy. So M.H. Phillips ran a very tight ship. Talk about just being on time, having your equipment at 9 and 10, and just being there and being not your, if you messed up, you got in trouble. Your parents, who were really trying to get you there on time, were the ones to blame. Right. But it was still my fault. I always thought that was good. And M.H. still coaching, today. And then Coach Reginelli was just to have a coach where everybody who played for him loved him, and just the sweetest man, and just funny, and the most quotable coach I've ever had. I mean, just forgetting things a little bit wrong, Reggieisms. They're just, and I love Coach Reg more than anything. And then getting the opposite with Coach Fitz, who was just, kind of from the Bobby Knight, I'd say, coaching tree, if you will, and probably, I know for a fact could have gone on and coached at meaningfully higher levels than 2A basketball in high school, and chose to stay there. He was overqualified for the job, and took it so seriously, and we I learned more. I learned a lot about basketball, but even more about life from him. And so those were all great mentors to me. And then, yeah, in the world of comedy, I mean, I'm a comedy nut. I love stand-up comedians. I love the grind that they go through, and just, I love to hear Jerry Seinfeld talk about, it's the failing nights that they talk about. That's like they love to.
Right, when they bomb.
When they bomb is when they get their calluses and their seasoning, and it's like they all, whether it's Eddie Murphy or Chris Rock or Louis C.K. or love Norm Macdonald, Dennis Miller, just people that they all talk. They don't talk about the nights they killed it. They all talk about the nights like throwing no hitters, just or the guy before you kind of starts talking about the same thing you're going to concentrate on. So they're like, oh God, I'm going to repeat Bill Burr. I mean, so to this day, I love that the grind and the heartache that goes with the success.
Yeah. No, for sure. So rounding out high school, so you're all-state receiver for 2 years, named all-state 2 years, and you won 2 state championships in basketball.
Right.
What schools were you recruited by?
Kind of the 3 final schools I was going to go to in football, and I guess I got some sniffs in basketball, but I knew very well that I was a 6'4" guard who was not going to be playing above the rim.
Right.
And so my future in basketball was my basketball days were over. When we won 2 state championships, I was content and loved it, but loved every minute of it. And we had great teammates, and winning a state championship in high school is as fun as it gets. But I was fortunate enough to get recruited by some schools, and then my final 3 really were Ole Miss, University of Virginia, and University of Texas.
Okay.
And I was headed to Texas. I had David McWilliams, who I run into at the games here, offered me. And unfortunately, a week before I was coming up on my visit to Texas, he got fired, and they hired John Makovic, who actually was recruiting me a little bit at Illinois. And I called him and said, Coach, what's the deal here? I know you liked me at Illinois. Do you like me at Texas? And he was kind of like, not really. We got enough guys that look like you at Texas. We're going to pivot. And so, and then the Virginia thing, similar situation, but kind of strung me out a little bit and didn't work out. And Billy Brewer, to his credit, who again, another coach that had a lot of impact on me, had offered me early. He said, look, Cooper, we like you. Before the season, you have a spot at Ole Miss. And I thought that was really big of him and cool of him. And so I kind of knew I had a spot in my hip. And I had always grown up going to the Grove and grown up going to as many Ole Miss games as I could. And I was an Ole Miss fan forever, especially with Archie's history there. And so, you look around and you figure it out, and that was a spot for me. And I was excited about going to Oxford and playing college football. Yeah.
So can't even imagine you're at Ole Miss your freshman year, and you got the medical diagnosis. And
it was a deal where I'd played in the high school all-star game, and I started having some like numbness in my right hand, my fingers, and I was a quarterback before I was a wide receiver, and so it started like trying to throw it, and I wasn't throwing it right, and then just you notice you start just didn't have the strength in your hand, which when you're catching balls all day, you kind of notice, and so there was a trainer there named Leroy Mullins who he just said something's not right here, doesn't make sense to me,
Right.
And so he was thank goodness he was persistent and kind of he just did not like my answers to his questions. And so he kept on the medical trail, and finally I went up to the Mayo Clinic and started, Dad and I went up there and got some more serious MRIs and things, and they noticed that I had kind of spinal stenosis, which is a congenital narrow in the spinal canal. And it's not that you can live your whole life there, and I'm sure people do all the time, they just don't go across the middle enough to where you have symptoms, and that's kind of what happened to me. And so I knew right then and there that football was over. But I was living in the athletic dorm. I'd been to practice. I dressed out for a game, and loved my teammates. But you kind of you get the writings on the wall, and there's something else out there, and so you got to pivot. When you're 18 and you're an athlete, and you're kind of your whole world revolves around sports, and to have that just pulled, you kind of start to look around and go, wait, what's my move here?
Right.
This is kind of who I am, and these are my buddies. And I literally went to practice for several weeks, maybe months, just because that was the routine. You know, I'd go out there and run and hang out and go to the locker room. And I had some older guys who had, I think, that I looked up to, who were kind of saying, man, you might want to go look around and not come practice anymore. There's more to do at Ole Miss. We're kind of jealous of your freedom.
Yeah.
And I took that, and I don't think I ever went to practice again. I said, okay. He said, you ought to be pulling to play golf and going fishing and being in a fraternity and, making friends and chasing girls and, whatever it is, but you have time, and this is a 4-year run. Go ahead and maximize it. And it was great advice.
No, that's wonderful. So you ended up studying broadcast journalism or journalism?
Yeah, that broadcast journalism. I initially was an accounting major, and
really,
I wasn't very good at it. And so someone else told me, hey, you ought to probably be in the communication school and broadcast school. And I went over there, and golly, just being in front of a camera and being on a microphone just came so easy to me. I don't know if I was any good at it, but I sure was comfortable, and I liked it. Well, and I didn't really love all the technical parts of the editing and stuff, but like just doing stories and golly, I have a save tape of mine it is some of the worst broadcasting.
From Ole Miss.
From Ole Miss.
Okay.
I mean, there's a new stop sign here in Oxford, and I had like this footage of people just running the stop sign, not knowing it was. I mean, it's amazing. The bowling league has taken on another night. I'm out there. I got my roommate, James Reese, who doesn't even know what the hell he's doing, is working the camera while I'm trying to interview these bowlers. I mean, it's just, you're looking for a story in Oxford sometimes in the summer or whenever it is, and not much going on.
Yeah.
The Ole Miss team gets a new helmet, and it's like riveting stuff, but it was fun. And
the search for content is a real thing.
It still is, my friend. It still is. Obviously, it's lean out there if you're interviewing me.
Oh, no, it's this. These are the fat times.
This
is huge.
Yeah.
So you graduate from Ole Miss, let's see, in 1996? Is that?
Yep,
okay.
4 years, amazingly. Somehow,
how did you get out in 4 years?
Dear,
it took me like 7.
A lot of summer school and, a lot of summer school. I finished up. I remember I lacked, I'd kind of worked it where I had to take 2 semesters of Spanish in Mexico in 14 days.
Oh God!
And my dad, and it was through Mississippi State. And my dad
is this to graduate?
I had it kind of worked where I said, Dad, I'm going to finish at Ole Miss in the May, but if I can just knock out these 2 semesters of Spanish in June, right after, I'm done. And it was through Mississippi State. And he goes, wait, you're not going to graduate Mississippi State? I said, no, Dad, I promise you, I wouldn't do that to you. And so literally I took 6 hours of Spanish in 14 days in Puebla, Mexico. And it was hysterical. It was hard. We had a lot of translations. And I mean, there's plenty of stories there that I'll never tell on the air.
That's fair. So you graduate from Ole Miss. And at this point, so you come back to New Orleans. Now, let me pause there. Did you immediately come back to New Orleans, or did you work somewhere else for a while?
I was interviewing all over. I had interviews in Nashville and Chicago. I didn't really quite know what I wanted to do. My dad was one of these guys who always told me since I was, in 7th grade, Coop, you're going to be in sales. Okay. You're going to be in sales. I'm like, what does that? I didn't even know what that meant. When someone says, what are you going to do? Whatever, I always was like, sales. I'll be sales. And he was right. Early, and you have those kids you can figure out quickly. I got one of those who will be in sales. Heid will be in sales. I don't know. Okay. He may invent the cure for athletes, but he's also going to be in sales.
Okay.
And so I worked for an old teammate of ours, Dad, Todd Andrews.
Really?
Big Al.
Okay.
Was always just one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And he was starting up a company, and Todd and I were his salesmen and I was doing that kind of while I was sniffing around on what the heck I was going to do.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I worked there for I moved home, living at home, and then finally moved out and got a cool apartment on Britannia, and worked there for probably I'd say 6 or 7 months, and then got a job in the oil business, working for a firm called Seismic Exchange, and a family-run business, very successful. And I kind of liked the idea of going and doing something that wasn't so attached to, per se, being a Manning, being in the sports world,
right,
and just kind of doing my own thing. And they were a wonderful family and were great to me. And I didn't know anything, and I worked there for 3 years and learned a ton. And then those 3 years allowed me to get my kind of dream job was to go work at Howard Wheel.
Okay.
And you had to be kind of a finance guy or
right,
come from industry, and I came from industry. So
right,
I was had 3 years in the seismic business, and so that was kind of the start of my family and career.
Yeah. So you started at Howard Wheel in 99?
In January of 2000.
Okay, January 2000. And you and Ellen got married in 99, or was it around that
Well,
time?
actually, let's see. You're right, actually. I got married in 99. I guess I started in 99. You're right.
Okay.
So in and around there. We got married, in March of 99. Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So you just celebrated 25 years.
Yeah, 25.
Okay.
It'll be over in about 6 months. It's about.
Did she just walk in?
She just walked out. Thank
Okay.
God. Yeah. Get out. Enough of this. Yeah.
She was kind enough to let us do this in the living room.
Well, she hates me. But why wouldn't you?
So
25 years.
Well, when did you start with WWL?
Oh, that's even better. So when I moved back to New Orleans, at 22, the big name in broadcasting in New Orleans was Buddy Diliberto.
Buddy D.
Buddy D.
Yeah.
And Buddy D had, a show on 870, WWL 870, the 50,000 clear-wide giant, And Buddy had a heart attack.
Right.
And as a broadcast journalist, they called and said, Cooper, hey, Buddy's, going to be out of commission in the spring. You're a broadcast manager. Have you done radio? And I was like, sure I have. Well, I haven't done anything. And they go, well, we need you to start hosting some shows at night. And I said, done. And so I would host a show maybe twice a week, I guess, on WBL from 8 to 10 at night in the spring as a call-in show. Mm-hmm. And you may not know this, James, but in the winter at 870, WBL 870, that massive area, they can hear you in Michigan.
Okay.
That thing goes.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. So people would call in, and I would call my friends and relatives. My grandfather would call in.
Please call in.
He'd be in the pickup truck, listening to the show and, probably sipping on something. And, people would call in. I'd get my friends to call in because this is before cell phones. This is before, traditional
right.
talk radio and talk shows. It was kind of just starting. And so, and then it was amazing. People would call in and you could get them going. You could say, well, spring football's coming up and obviously LSU is going to have a terrible season. And be like, ding, 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 ding,
Board lights up.
Finally, someone's calling in. So you could do whatever you wanted to because it was back then, New Orleans was just Saints around, around the clock. And then you throw in, some LSU and stuff and Tulane on top of it. But that was a phenomenal, learning experience for me. I had some ladies there that would type out what to say. And welcome back to break. And I'm just rereading it. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
But man, what an experience at 22 to be hosting your own show. I remember my dad would even came into the studio one time and we talked. And I remember saying, Dad, oh man, I'm so excited to have Archie Manning with us in studio. Now, Dad, I told you this was informal, but you could at least worn a shirt, And he'd be like, Cooper, cut that out, So you could mess with him even then, and it was amazing.
We won't get into the pranking and any of those things because we probably shouldn't talk about those things on the air. But man, well, I guess we can get into a little bit of that. But so you're at Howard. So you're doing the show. You're at Howard Wheel until like 2012. You don't go to AJ Capital until like 16. So in between 12 and 16, this is kind of like you're just doing purely broadcasting, or are you doing different things?
I was all the way. Howard Wheel, which was the greatest place to work ever. It was basically an investment banking firm, but we were a institutional sales, and we just covered the energy sector.
Right.
And it was also, the time that we came on, it was kind of the same time that these hedge funds started ramping up. So you had colleagues of yours and friends of yours and people your age that were all of a sudden in a position of power,
Right.
and could invest a lot of money and could pay brokers however they seemed. And so I was, making a lot of friends who had a lot of discretionary capital, so to speak, to put together. And so we started being really successful. The kind of the older guys who were, smarter and been around were at a little bit of a disadvantage versus the young up and coming guys who were able to take these guys who were 25, 26, 27 and become great friends with them.
Right.
The 40-year-old guys were going, do I want to hang out with these 26-year-old guys? And 26-year-old guys go, do I want to hang out with these 40-year-old guys? So we caught this little wind and got it ramped up, and we were, making a lot of money, and the firm was doing well. And in 2012, we got oil prices were really high, and a big Canadian bank came in and said, y'all, we want to buy you. And so we went down that road and sold the firm. And so for the next 4 years, worked under that regime. And then kind of realized the game was up a little bit.
Yep.
It wasn't going to be as fun as it was, and had more regulation. And so I thought after 16 years at Howard Weil, it was time to pivot and do something different.
But you're still doing Fox NFL Sunday.
I always liked to keep my just little finger on the pulse of the broadcast stuff. I was on a show at the Treasure Chest Casino with Buddy D.
Okay.
I had a show at the casino when it opened with my dad. We would pick in games and talking
Harris,
things.
yeah.
And that's always liked to be a little bit. I knew to be a really good broadcaster, I wasn't a good enough football player to be like the play-by-play guy. I wasn't, I didn't play enough to do that. And then I didn't really want to be going to Friday night football games, as a sportscaster too. So I just said, I want to just keep my finger on the pulse. And then, 10 years ago, my good friend, late great friend, Chris Mortensen, he was always at our Manning Pass Academy, and he called me and said, Cook, we were talking, he goes, you need to do something with all this. I hear you on the mic all the time at the Manning Passing Academy and been around. There's something here. Let's figure something out. And I was like, what do you think? Kind of this rudderless ship. And he set me up for an interview at ESPN to say, and I said, I'd like to interview some of these players and do some fun things. Yeah. And he set me up for an interview at ESPN, and then someone else recommended I talk to Fox too. And on the same day, I drove from Bristol and drove down and met with a guy named Jamie Horowitz in Connecticut, and he was going to be taking over Fox. And we just sat there and we drank a margarita, and he had all his kids there, and it was a mess, and I was making him laugh. And he goes, I don't know what the hell this is, but we're going to do something.
There's something there.
There's something there. And so, we started, I don't think they thought I could get access to the players.
Gotcha.
And that's what I want to do, is just show a little different side of the players and do something funny. And I was probably trying to copy a little bit of kind of Between Two Ferns and make it awkward, but they agreed to do it. And I thought Fox probably made a little more sense from kind of the Hollywood flavored stuff, not just straight sports, but just a little more, I don't know, comedic route. They seem like they give you a little more rope to do whatever the hell you want. And my first one was with Drew Brees. I called Drew and said, Drew, I've got this show and I need to get on the right foot, get it off.
Well, he was your neighbor too, right? I mean,
he lived around the block, and he goes, okay. He just, he was very nice of him to do it. He just came over, and it was awkward as hell. I wore a tuxedo. He was sitting on my front porch, and I just talked about how I wasn't, you've been over to my house a ton, and I've never been over to your house, and it was just these awkward pauses. And he was a pro. And then the next week, I got Odell. I went up to New York. So I was like, okay, I got an established quarterback. I got a new up-and-coming cool wide receiver. And then I went to Denver and leaned on Peyton, and he helped me get Von Miller. Yeah. And then the next week, that year, Cam Newton was making his MVP move. Okay. And I got Cam and I got manicures and pedicures that day. And I was in a short robe, and he had a week off, and I had some pretty girl, giving him a manicure, and I was like, Cam, appreciate you doing this. He's like, what are you talking about? This is amazing. And so that kind of at least made anybody else that I ever talked to would say, hey, I've done Drew, Odell, Vaughn, and Cam, and then 10 years later, I'm at Fox and still doing, idiotic, sophomoric things, and we have a script and we never stick to it.
Yeah. That's great. I was watching some clips the other day, and it's like, I guess you're in, I don't know if you're in the Gator Bar in New Orleans, but you had like the sunglasses on, like the pimp hat, and it was just like all the, it was like kind of like a mashup, and you're going through nicknames, things you had nicknamed yourself.
I can't remember.
I was just dying. I mean, like some of the nicknames, you're like, oh, my favorite one was the White Mystery.
Yeah, the White Mystery. That probably should have stuck. It's funny, James, with me and comedy, I have very limited recall on anything that comes out of my mouth. Okay. It's funny. Peyton remembers everything,
sure.
Kind of like my dad. He'll go, "Cool, up in the middle of the night when you said this." I'm like,
"Nope."
God, that's great. What a good line that is. Amazing. Who's so clever to come up with that? And I just don't really remember it very much. But I love. I don't know. It's fun. It's fun, to take on that alter ego of this guy who really thinks he's important, and he's a little bit. He thinks he's in the club, but he's really not. But he acts like he is, and just be cocky, and you can also be mean to people, and they can be mean to you, and everybody when you go break, everybody just laughs, and the cameramen are dying, and everybody's happy to be there.
No, dude, it's great. It's really hilarious. So, how did you make the connection with AJ Capital Partners?
Yeah, so. When I was at Howard Wheel, I would always go up to Chicago. I was doing a lot of business there, and I had a friend I'd met at the Neshoba County Fair, this country-ass fair that we go to every year in Mississippi, and he had been a guest of a cousin of mine, and he was friends with Eli, named Ben Weppern. And Ben, Ben would always tell me where to go, you ought to go take some clients there, go to stay at this hotel, cool spot. He was kind of just a dynamic guy. And then we had always kind of talked about doing a deal together or maybe working together. I don't know, just kind of danced around. And so in 2000, kind of late in that 16th year, the bank was taken over, and it was going to be a little different than the old little 50-man shop that Howard Wheel was. All of a sudden you're owned by a massive bank. And Ben and I started talking, and to his credit, he goes, "Coop, we're going to start ramping up. I need someone to start helping me raise some capital." And I said, "Ben, I never raised capital." And he goes, "Okay." And I go, "And I don't know shit about real estate." And he's like, "You're perfect." And so he's kind of one of these guys he likes to hire athletes, as I call them. You may be playing center one day, and you might be playing defensive tackle the next day, and then, cheering from the bench as a 12th man on a basketball team. It just what works. And then Can you hit a flop shot? Yes. Can you play pickleball? Sure. Whatever. And so that's kind of the way literally that firm has been. And I think I was employee 25. Wow. And the day I went to work, the first day at AJ Capital, the guy that was kind of in charge of hiring me, he quit. And I went, "Oh God, this is great." And it's been, I'm coming up on 9 years, right. And Ben's really smart and really talented, and for some reason finds me mildly trustworthy and amusing, and it's been a blast. It's been hard. We've had some headwinds in the world of real estate. I mean, it hadn't been just rainbow, bubble up and rainbow stew.
There's this whole thing called COVID.
That's been. And interest rates at highs. And so it hadn't been just as easy, but it's been, I know we're doing the right stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you look at the firm, right? So for anyone that hasn't heard of AJ Capital Partners, it's real estate investment opportunities, but it's really focused, you correct me if I'm wrong, but like hospitality, residential, mixed use, like those types of properties. I'd say
we're rooted in hospitality, and our biggest platform is the Graduate Hotel, which when I came on,
is that your baby or like?
I know it's got it has many fathers, but I love colleges. I love college towns, and being a part of making a certain asset different than others. You go to University of Michigan, and that personality of that hotel looks nothing like the one in Oxford, Mississippi, and looks nothing like the one in Palo Alto. And so that being a part of that and was really fun. But now we're doing all kind of interesting things that we have golf courses. Hotels on some of the greatest golf courses in the UK, now doing our first one in the US. We started this Field and Stream brand, which is something I was telling a guy the other day. I grew up, Field and Stream to me, like, did you ever get your hair cut over at
Golden Shears?
Yes. At Golden Shears, right there in the magazine.
Yeah, they have Playboys and Field and Stream.
Exactly.
That's it.
And so what I would always do is go get that Field and Stream and stick a Playboy right in the middle and pretend like I was getting ready to buy a new, duck call when I was really looking at Miss November.
I mean, that was the move.
Yeah, and so
Playboys and the haircuts were like $10.
That's part of my pitch. So, but we've done some really impressive things, and Ben is forward thinking and has a decorator's eye and a financial mindset, and I fall somewhere in the middle of the mud, and just fortunately can try to find the right people that think like we do and want to be a part of some of the cool things we're doing. So I would say it's not boring, and if we were doing boring cookie cutter stuff, that firm, I'd say 80% of the people there would probably walk out. It's pretty innovative people. They're passionate about what they do, and I think I'm the oldest guy at the whole firm.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at the website. So, about how many people work there?
It's probably 125 people. We have a
big office Now, Ben went to Tennessee. Is he from Tennessee originally?
Ben is from Dayton, Ohio.
Wow.
Loves Dayton. He knows every single person that ever did one thing meaningful from Dayton.
In Dayton, Ohio.
And is loyal to that town, but went to Tennessee and then married a Tennessee girl. And he and Eli are actually, I would say, closer friends.
Okay.
And Ben and I are good friends, but he and Eli are arguably, they go on family trips, etc. together.
Okay.
But it's been a fun pivot late in life. I mean, I would say late in life, at 40.
Well, so one of the projects that you did was like near and dear to your heart, the Pontchartrain Hotel in New Orleans, right?
That's really the first thing Ben and I ever did together.
Which is amazing.
We did that before I even came to work at AJ Capital, because we were looking for a graduate hotel spot around Tulane.
Gotcha.
And he was like, I don't see any hotels around here. What do you think? And I said, golly, Ben, there's this old hotel that we grew up going to Christmas Eve dinner there in the back at the Caribbean room, and it's a shadow itself. It had this great, blueberry muffin spot. I'd go with my grandmother, the Silver Whistle Cafe, and they had the Bayou Bar, which is where they actually signed. Pete Rozelle was in there to kind of ink the deal to have the Saints come to New Orleans. That was in the Bayou Bar, and these great rooms, and Ben came down and helped facilitate a transaction with these guys, and the hotel was didn't look anything like itself, but it was probably the nicest hotel in the city in '84. And we bought it and put on this cool rooftop bar and brought back all the traditions, and it's fun, it's funky. People, some people love it to death. Some people are like, I don't get it, and that's fun. That's kind of like New Orleans,
Right.
And that was the first thing we ever did, and it's really, really fun, and AJ Capital is really good at taking old dogs and bringing them back to life.
Well, and I'm not saying this to garner any favor. Anytime I take a group of guys to New Orleans, which I do, because who doesn't love going?
Fine, James, I'll give you a discount.
Oh, no.
Here we go.
I just really need a tab at the bar. It's what I tell people all the time. If you're going to New Orleans, whether you're with me or not, you have to go to the Pontchartrain and go to Hot 10. But it's the best rooftop bar in the city. And it's just cool, man. Like you said, it's like the funky spot. And then at night, you go down to the piano bar.
Yeah.
And if you like to ham it up and sing along, which, come on. I love that.
Show the pipes off. Go ahead, give me something. Come on.
There's so many things I want to do right now, but I'm just not going to do it. But you mentioned Zach Galifianakis, and it's funny because I'm kind of like the Zach Galifianakis at my office. I actually started a meeting for our group of employees called Between Two Ferns, just about how to have awkward conversations with clients, and that's what it's all about. But so taking that to the next level, so I listened to this and I read the article. You did there's a podcast. So to tie in Ben Weprin and the hotels, right? The Rusacks Hotel.
Yeah.
So you guys basically acquired that in what, 2019?
You better than it. What year is it now?
I think it's 24.
Okay, yeah, it's probably right before COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID.
It was perfect because we bought. This is this phenomenal landmark hotel on the 18th fairway of the old course at St. Andrews.
Right.
It's in the picture of everybody who's ever holding up
The British Open.
the jug at the Open Championship, and there's the Rusacks behind it, and an old gentleman named Donald McDonald owned that, and he and Ben hit it off. We were looking at another asset that he owned, and he said, "Y'all might want to take a look at this." And so we thought maybe that was going to be a graduate hotel because St. Andrews is a cool college town,
right.
And then got in there and recognized it has so much golf history, and thought and recognized that also there's a number of wonderful places to go and play golf where the hospitality doesn't quite match the golf.
Right.
And so we thought we could make a business of it. And so we created this brand called Marine and Lawn.
Yep.
And then we fortunately could even add more rooms at some people, the Rusacks, you never know, you get corrected all the time.
Sure.
But added more rooms and added this cool rooftop bar called 18, beautiful restaurant and overlooking the golf course. And it was, I get more photos and, thank you letters for things, I didn't do, but that they've, going on trip with their parents, or 10 buddies going, or, 12 buddies going for a 50th birthday,
right.
all staying at the Rusacks.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to be a part of that. And we have a number of other ones that are worth visiting.
So I'll tell you the story. One of my friends and coworkers, his name's Eddie. He's a huge golfer, loves the golf.
Yeah.
Recorded a podcast with him called The Fated Foursome. But so he's met Peyton and Eli. But he's like, well, James, I've never met Cooper, but he's my favorite Manning. So why is... I was like,
those guys must have really disappointed Eddie.
What did they do? Give him a wedgie?
No, so he met him at Augusta. No, it was a fine night. So he was there as a guest, and Peyton and Eli were there with George Strait.
Oh yeah.
And I forgot who else was there.
Was I there that night?
What's that?
Was I there that night?
You were not.
Oh, okay.
You were not.
Okay.
So Eddie, the point is they're very nice. I actually asked Eddie, I was like, did they make Archie proud? He's like, yes, they made Archie proud. But Eddie told me, he's like, well, Cooper's my favorite Manning. And I was like, but you haven't met him, so why do you say that? And he's like, well, have you listened to Matt Janello's Fire Pit podcast about the ultimate 2022 buddies trip at the Rusacks? And he said, if you listen to this podcast, so I did go back and listen to it. It's like, at one point at the bar, I guess it's the one under, which is, I've never been. So you want to put in a good word for me, get me over there.
There's a rooftop bar and there's a basement bar, if you will.
So I guess Mark Eubanks gets a call. It's like, hey, we have a problem, Mark. Peyton is behind the bar in a bathrobe serving drinks. And he's like, well, it's not Peyton. It's Cooper. First of all, we don't have a problem, and it's not Peyton, it's Cooper.
Well,
something like that.
Just seemed like the right thing to do.
You get mistaken for Peyton and Eli a lot, or you kind of go out of your way to tell people that you are when you feel like hamming it up a little bit?
I would say if it's amusing, it was me. If it's offensive, it was definitely Peyton and Eli.
Anyway, so I would encourage anyone to go. It sounded like a pretty amazing trip.
It was an unbelievable golf trip. Anytime going over there was fun, but we would play golf in the morning and go watch the Open Championship at night, in the afternoon, on this balcony outside the Rusacks.
Yeah.
Taylor Zarzer is supposed to be broadcasting the deal. We're over there drinking old fashions and being loud, and he's supposed to be concentrating. And we're looking over at his TV like, did Cam make that? Is Rory going to move? And so and then we did a lot of the cool traditions that go with everything Scottish. And Eric Church is on the trip. When I did that interview with Matt, didn't know I was being interviewed. I was just telling him about the trip to let him know we might want to talk about it. And then he just took whatever the heck I said, and that, plastered that on the web. I thought this was like a practice run, if you will. And so it was great. Ben, Eli, we had great guys.
Yeah.
Played golf with Daly one day.
Yeah, John Daly was
all
there.
this, just everything every wrong turn was the right turn.
Yeah.
And it was magical.
Yeah, so I think it's on Golf Digest. So it's the ultimate buddies trip.
If you're considering going on a boys trip or whether it doesn't matter in one way or the other, but if you have a good excuse to go somewhere you probably listen to it and you probably will get some good
Yeah.
tips. I had a buddy call me the other day. It was 8 guys from Jesuit High School, New Orleans guys, and they all went over there on a boys' trip. And one of the guys is a chef. He's not a very good golfer, and on that trip, he made 2 hole-in-ones.
Really?
And the place, I mean, they couldn't, I have my buddy who's a 1 handicap is going, I can't, I haven't hit a green, I haven't hit anything inside 20 feet, and this moron who plays 3 times a year has hit 2 hole-in-ones back-to-back days. I mean, that sort of stuff is, it only happens, in Scotland and Northern Ireland. So
That's hilarious.
it's fun.
All right, so let's pivot to family and fatherhood.
Yeah.
We covered, so you and Ellen have been married 25 years. You have 3 children, May, Arch, and Heid. Which strikes me is like how just for your family, how things have just gone full circle, right? And what I mean by that is, so Ellen and May both went to Sacred Heart. Ellen played volleyball at Sacred Heart, like won a state championship her senior year, I believe. And then May goes to Sacred Heart. She wins the state championship her senior year, and I think the last time they won was when her mom teams won. Did I get that?
I think
right?
they probably won a few between,
They won a few.
but that was pretty special. And actually, a teammate of Ellen's ended up coaching them that year as
really?
well, coaching May, and kind of a girl, Betsy Laborde, who May took thousands of lessons from, and
Oh, that's great.
kind of on the meeting over there on Sunday nights and just working on her game ever since she was young. Ended up joining the staff her senior year and running, kind of being a big part of that reason they made that big run.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Now, and she went to UVA. Like Ellen also went to UVA.
exactly right.
Did May play at UVA or no? Just
She played, but not volleyball.
Okay.
She played. I just went to see her the other day. She's living in a house. It is the worst looking house I've ever seen, called 2U. 9 girls, 3 bathrooms. Ellen lived there, 30 years ago, and I don't think they've done one single thing to it. So she got May's had an extraordinary college career of fun and great friends, and loved and literally she's tearing up every time the idea of graduating in this spring becomes a topic. She's loved every minute of her time in Charlottesville.
That's amazing. So you and Arch both played basketball at Newman. Ironically, both won at least a couple of state championships, but we played with Randy Livingston. And then Randy Livingston coached Arch. So, like, how cool was that?
I mean,
to have a teammate coach your son.
Right. The best player you and I ever watched play basketball, probably the two, we saw Chris Jackson probably play in high school, but got to play with Randy Livingston, who most people would say is the best basketball player ever to come out of the state of Louisiana, or arguably, one of them. And he won 3 state championships. He was our teammate, and MVP, parade All-American MVP as a junior and a senior. And the fact that he would come back around, and he coached Arch and Will Randall and those guys at Cannon all in 8th grade.
Right.
They went undefeated in 8th grade. And it was not some overpowering team. It was coaching was a big part of the reason we were winning.
Yeah.
And then coached them to a state championship as well, and they won another. But it was Randy's been a great friend and a great. I think he really taught in many ways Arch how to get yelled at.
Okay.
I don't know if you teach someone, but when you get to college in football, you get yelled at.
Right.
And Randy used to yell at him, kind of like we were yelled at by Fitz.
Yep.
And he'd come home like, Randy, I don't like Randy. I'm like, I don't blame you, but get used to it. It's good for you, you know?
Yeah.
And he yelled at him and, was on them and called them out on their little, spoil rotten ways that need to happen always when you're in high school. And Arch loves Randy.
Yeah. Well, also, too, you mentioned the name. I was going to bring it up. When you were in high school, now on the football side, you played with John Randall, and Arch played with Will Randall, who's John's son. So here you and John are fathers, and then you're watching your sons play football and basketball together at Newman, and now they're both at Texas, right? Is it Will at Texas?
And Will's, and they're living together.
Are they?
Yeah, and
That's amazing.
And we'll see John and Michelle every weekend in Austin. So it's we've been really lucky to have so many things that were a big part of our life growing up, kind of be able to be a part of our kids' lives.
Yeah. Well, and then what I was going to close it up to the other, to me, the full circle moments, or all these full circle moments. Now you have Arch and Heid, who are 2 years apart.
One year apart. One class apart.
Center and quarterback.
Yep.
They got to play together in high school, just like you and Peyton got to play together in high school.
Heid played 3 years blocking, for the Newman, 2 years blocking for Arch. He was a center 1 year and played right tackle, played guard 1 year, played right tackle, played them all. Yeah. And he's a freshman out at Texas. And Heid is Heid the women and children. He is an absolute.
he's a monster.
I love him. He kills me.
I mean, when you and I were at Newman, I didn't even know what lacrosse was. I mean, it was just a game invented by the Native Americans. Newman now has a lacrosse team, and did Heid play lacrosse at Newman?
One of my favorite days of youth sports was at Heid after his 9-year-old travel, baseball year. He comes to me and they're going to have 10-year-old tryouts, and he said, "Dad, I think I'm going to play lacrosse instead of baseball." I was like, "You got it, bucko." No more rainouts in Gonzales and getting home. And I'd never been in a lacrosse game. I said, "Let's do it." Got him the stick, and he went out there, and we had more fun. Great parents. And only things I ever yelled is I'd go, "Move!" And then I would say, "Run!" And that's all I would say. I had no other really additive moments as a parent of a lacrosse, but fun. And they had great teams. And we played all the travel stuff, and got into. I think he got into maybe a bunch of semifinals and state championships. And but Heid was a kind of a bruiser. He was in the crease and scored a lot of goals, and didn't have to move a whole lot, and just kind of put his derriere on people and move people around. Got a lot of penalties, a lot of time in the penalty box. Kind of a little cheapy, a little cheap shot guy, but I didn't miss any of those games. I kind of took the template from my dad. I went to.
You went to every game.
I went to games, and that's what's so weird now. Full circle is being empty nester and having no responsibility. I feel like I'm always kind of like. I know there's a volleyball game, and I know there's a lacrosse game. I know we've got a basketball game, a little league or something, and so it's interesting, kind of being quiet.
So when Arch is thinking about when he was still at Newman, just like your father was, Archie probably was very instrumental, or just maybe like a sounding board for you when you were considering schools. I imagine. I mean, I would imagine. I don't have any intel, but you served in that role for Arch. When did you? Well, how did you help him?
Yeah, well, a couple things. It happens earlier now. Everything's earlier. So when you're a sophomore, when you really don't really have your eye on the ball of trying, where am I going to college? I mean, you're just not there yet. But unfortunately, in recruiting, they want to start getting in front of you at an earlier age. And you might, in Archie's case, he committed to the University of Texas before, in the summer after his junior year.
Right.
So it's early. So I just thought it was a good idea to go see as many places as you can.
Right.
Now that means you're going and taking trips when he probably would rather be staying home with his buddies and hanging out and watching football, at someone's house and hanging out. I said, no, we got to go see some places. So I probably was a little bit of a nag, but and more of a concierge than like, here we got to go this time. And so we kind of made it a family deal.
Okay.
Ellen and May and Heid, and we all just said, let's go see Clemson. Let's go see what Athens is like for a football game, and Tuscaloosa, and go to Ole Miss, and go up to LSU, and go see what Austin is like, and where you as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old can learn to find out what you even like, because you don't even know. You don't have taste yet. Right. And things I liked, he didn't like, and things and vice versa. So we made it fun, but at the same time, they like to take you out. And then you have early morning stuff and kind of seeing whether you get up. I'm like, Arch, get up! You got to impress these people. And he's like, oh, I'm tired. I'm like, every 60-year-old. Then as you get older, they just grow up and they handle it on themselves. They want to impress as opposed to. But it was looking back, it was fun. It was fun to see the different personalities of all these coaches and programs and make a lot of friends. And it's unfortunate that you get really close to a lot of people and then you have to kind of disappoint them at the end by only picking one spot. But he grew up a lot during it, and I think that was rewarding.
So I'm trying to think of the timeline. This was a sophomore, junior year. Was Coach O still in the mix at LSU, or was he gone?
Coach O, I'll tell you, we went we all drove up to Baton Rouge, and Newman played in a little 7-on-7 deal the summer before Archie's freshman year, and Coach O was the coach. Joe Brady was driving the golf cart around that, for my parents, were going from field to field, and Arch weighed 160 pounds, I think. Coach O was great. He offered him a scholarship. I said, Coach, we don't need all that, that stuff. And Newman had a good day, and but that was and then but who knew they were getting ready to win a national championship that year? And Joe Burrow came out, and no one quite knew what a phenomenal player he would become, and so it was good times.
So now that Heid and Arch are both here, you guys still have your place in New Orleans. You spend time in Austin. I'm just going to ask you: have you broken bread with Matthew McConaughey yet? I mean, has that happened? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about it. We just decided that we were going to go to all the games.
Okay.
As parents, and so that's why we said, let's get a little spot here. I had this wonderful place in Oxford that I sold to a good friend of mine, and we kind of said, let's get a place here because it's just fun to have friends and have people come over after the games, and we've made a lot of friends outside it. I could be here for 2 weeks and never see Arch and Heid. I mean, maybe see them for a minute after the game, but
that's hilarious.
We're not getting in the way of their college experience.
Yep.
And we're traveling in and out from here, but it's fun to be in Austin. It's a fun town. I met Matthew McConaughey a couple times in town, and then actually he came over for a New Year's Eve this year. Texas was playing the Sugar Bowl.
Nice.
on New Year's Day,
and
he called and said, "Coop, I'm looking for a spot in New Orleans. I've got 3 kiddos, and we want to do something New Year's Eve."
Yeah.
And I said, why don't you just come over? My mom's cooking Italian, and we'll have some wine, and Heid's got a bunch of pals. It'll be in the backyard, and just it's loose goose.
Yeah.
And I said, he goes, all right, we're in.
Yeah.
And he was great. He brought over some of his tequila, which was excellent.
Okay.
And we drank the heck out of that Pantalones. And I didn't tell anybody he was coming.
Good.
Because my mom can't keep a secret, and she would have told everybody and gotten all nervous. And so Matthew came over with his beautiful wife and kiddos, and we had fun. And they were throwing the football in the front yard at midnight.
That's hilarious.
It was great. He couldn't be nicer.
Now, I remember, your parents, I'll circle back to your parents, but they would host us because the state championship for basketball was always during Mardi Gras.
Right. And we weren't allowed to party or drink or have any fun.
Zero fun.
Yep.
No fun whatsoever.
Can't have a drink in Mardi Gras. I can't have a drink at all during the season.
No, you can't.
In high school. I'm not sure they keep those rules anymore.
I don't know.
Training rules.
How they could.
Yeah.
But so between you, so there are 9 grandchildren. So you have 3. Archie and Olivia, I guess altogether have 9 grands, right?
Peyton has 2 and Eli has 4.
So are you guys able as a family? I know it's probably hard to get that many people together just judging by my own family, but do you guys ever get together and hang out with all the cousins and everything?
Yeah, truthfully, the Mardi Gras is a great time because
Okay.
everybody has a blast. Christmas is hard because everybody's going different ways. And historically, when you play football, and especially the boys playing professional football, you don't come home for Thanksgiving and you don't have to come for Christmas. Those are, you're playing those days.
Right.
Arch won't come home for Thanksgiving. He might, no telling what happens on Christmas. So it's athletics create dysfunction when it comes around, routine.
Sure.
And so one place Mardi Gras is a great time to get together. We always get together at the Manning Passing Academy.
That's right.
You can count on, and Peyton's, kiddos are coming now, and then the girls will come in and they'll do a trip. So we try to make it work. We'll be in our 29th year of the Manning Passing Academy.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. My dad does an unbelievable job. He keeps track with all these alums that we have and active quarterbacks, and he's the best communicator in the world. And so, but the best place for me to see my brothers is on a golf course.
Okay.
That's kind of how we find a play. I got 3, you got 3. Let's go meet and go play and yuck it up and have fun.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So now that it's happening, right? So it's your kids are in college, and like you said, May's about to graduate, and you even kind of joke, it's like, hey, we're Ellen and I are empty nesters now. When you're not quite empty nesters, I guess.
Yeah, we are. You have no responsibility really. They're in college, they're done. We can kind of do whatever we want. It's fun.
When you guys kind of look at this next phase, like, I mean, are you going to stay in New Orleans or Austin? Like, when you think about, retirement, like, what does that look like for you?
I think we're semester to semester.
Yeah.
I'm fall to spring. I have no idea what we're, I think we're just enjoying the ride and having fun. And, but I've never been one to try to plan something out much further than about 6 months, because it's not going to work out that way anyway.
No, I hear you. But I mean, you're settling in Austin. You got the boots.
I got my, I've been here. Let's see, Archie's been in school, 2 years now. I got my first pair of boots. A buddy of mine gave me a pair of boots this week, and yesterday, literally, I went and tried them on, and I'm working. I didn't want to be the guy from New Orleans who rolled in town, I've always loved Texas, and I like country music, and I love Willie and Waylon and Jerry Jeff, and that's always been a part of my life, forever. But I didn't want to roll in town and be some, looking like Wyatt Earp on day one with chaps and so I tiptoed in. I like a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
I got way too much press for. Walked in. I'd had 2 Bloody Marys. I walked into that Texas OU fair. I saw the biggest hat I've ever seen. It was hotter than hell that day. I said, I'll buy that hat right there, and I bought it. And I didn't know Herb Street and Fowler were going to just roast me.
They found you.
Yeah, they found me. 1,000-gallon hat. Everybody loved it though. Some people thought something like I was really. Peyton kept going, I don't think, some people don't, they think you're being serious. I go, well, poor people. Sad for them. I did it as a joke. I will wear it again. I'll wear it next year at Texas OU. You can count on it. It's a tradition.
Yeah. Well, you got to keep that going.
It's so big, I couldn't even get it in the overhead at Southwest Airlines.
It was pretty big. You mentioned Manning Passing Academy. I know it's not a 501c3, but are there is there any charity that you and Ellen like to support, or I'm just curious. I just didn't.
We've been pretty good to our school. Newman and Sacred Heart has kind of been where we've been. Mostly country. I'm on the board of the Idea Village down in New Orleans, which I really think is a great way to keep smart people, smart entrepreneurial people in the city and in and around Louisiana, and we figure out ways to kind of nurture them and help them get a plan and help them find ways to raise capital and just keeping talent local.
Yep.
Those
That's
two.
Cool.
But you said something and I got sidetracked. Yeah.
I was just thinking about giving back at any organizations.
And I got something kind of up my sleeve coming that we're excited about as a family. Yeah, something in the I hope works. I got my fingers crossed. By the time this thing's out, it would hopefully be announced or fall flat and never happen. So I'm not going to say yet. Okay. But I do have. Yeah, I think that. I love New Orleans. The spring in New Orleans is so fun. I can't, I love getting down there I love being in New Orleans for Manali's and my oysters and my crawfish. And I have this convertible that I bought when I was 40, this 1975 Chevrolet Caprice, baby blue.
Wow.
And just riding around and music on in the wind. And I love calling Eli, who's up in Summit, New Jersey, like in March 1st when it's just perfect and crisp, and I call him and I'm driving home from playing 9 holes with a little, smile on my face, and I call Eli and he's like shoveling the driveway full of snow. I'm like, you sorry sack of cheese. So.
Well, speaking of hats, so now we get to the gift portion of the show. Every guest, a Southern character, gets a hat.
Really?
So I had these made. There are 3 different kinds, or 3 different looks. So there's a navy and khaki, and so you have retire Southern patch on the front, and then Southern character is embroidered on the back. Navy and khaki, I call that one the classic. Then there's a light blue and white. I call this one the coastal. And then there's the green and black. This is more for the woodsman. The hunter. I call this one the campfire. But dealer's choice, you get to pick one of those.
I think that's probably a good one to wear with safety.
The classic?
Right? Yeah. Super duper. Thank you, Dan.
So if you want to wear that and like Herb Street, say something about that. We also got a retire Southern. I should have brought something for Ellen.
No, she doesn't deserve anything. Give her another 25 years.
No, she yeah.
Oh, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Really.
No, man.
Fun visiting.
No, this was really great. Thank you so much for having me in your home.
Nothing to it, man. I appreciate you making the effort. Always good to see former Greenie's done good. You know?
Yeah, so I'll just close it out. If you've enjoyed this episode of Southern Character, please share it with family and friends. Be sure to visit our website, retiresouthern.com, and subscribe to our monthly newsletter so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or feedback, you can reach out through our contact page or email me at james@retiresouthern.com. Coop, again, thank you for today, man.
Really fun. Great catching up.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.